Good morning, everyone. It's Catherine Ewing from Sacred Heart Alchemy and Divinely Inspired Feminine Leaders. I'm generally inspired to jump on and share thoughts with you when it's something that's been coming up quite a bit in my client sessions. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. This issue of sort of your nervous system and getting easily triggered without really understanding what's happening or why you're getting triggered has been coming up quite a bit in client sessions recently. So I just wanted to address it with people, because I've been a social worker and a practicing psychotherapist, and I've studied, brain stuff and all of that for so long. I think I have this idea that everybody knows these things. And because they're so second nature to me, right? But then as I'm talking to clients, I'm realizing that this information isn't necessarily something that everybody knows. And it is so helpful for clients to understand a little bit about how their brain is working, what's going on when you're getting triggered, what's happening in your brain and in your body, because it's both, right? So let me just start by saying that your nervous system has two basic settings, is how I'm gonna, either on or off. And those settings are your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system has more to do with your fight, flight, freeze response. It's the part of your nervous system that gets turned on when you feel anxious, worked up, and you're sort of on high alert, right? It's the very primitive part of your brain that gets activated when you feel unsafe, when you feel threatened, when you feel like your life might be in danger. And I want to emphasize that it's when you feel that way. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are being threatened. There's not a saber-toothed tiger, chasing after you, or you haven't necessarily stepped off a curb and noticed, a bus coming directly at you. It's what your brain perceives as threatening. And your nervous system tends to be more dominant in one or the other. So it could be more dominant in the sympathetic mode. It's sort of on that more often. Or it could be more dominant in the parasympathetic mode. And in the parasympathetic mode, you're generally more relaxed, you're more calm, things, are more slowed down, you have more access to your higher level thinking, to your creativity. And whether you operate primarily in a sympathetic mode or a parasympathetic mode has everything to do with early life experiences that have basically trained you to be in one or the other. So if you're someone who grew up perhaps in a family system that was somewhat chaotic, or your needs were not met on a consistent basis, it could have been full out trauma of some kind, or just maybe, not just, neglect, your needs weren't getting met, or there was sort of chaos around you. There were, people who were fighting, or lots of people in and out, or perhaps a significant person in your life left or abandoned you, and you, as a result, end up with a nervous system that is sort of trained to be in the sympathetic mode, where it's always on high alert, right? Sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop, never really feeling safe in your space or even in your own body. When we grow up in families that are calmer, not perfect, but where the dominant energy is that our needs are being met, there's some consistency. As an infant and a child, we learn, to sort of be able to trust that our needs are going to get met in a, pretty reliable manner. We feel more relaxed in our body. Our nervous system is trained in that way, where we sort of feel safe in the world. We feel safe within ourselves. We might get triggered, but not as easily. So this issue of triggering has come up quite a bit, and so I'm going to address that. And, clients are saying, like, I don't even know why. I don't even know what happened, but I just started to feel really anxious, or I wanted to withdraw, or I got really argumentative or irritable, or all of a sudden, like, I just didn't feel good in my body. And they may not even recognize that they've just been triggered. So the more you function in the sympathetic aspect of your nervous system, the anxious, worked up, sort of high alert mode, the more likely you are to be triggered. And I sort of want to use this visual example. So if you imagine, I don't know if anybody uses them anymore, but the old pressure cookers where, the pressure, it would be filled with water, and as it heated up, the steam would need a place to escape. It had kind of a pressure valve on it. Maybe if you have one of those Instapots now, it's sort of the same idea. You have to release the pressure or else it can explode, right? So when you've grown up in a situation where your sympathetic nervous system is your dominant mode in your nervous system, imagine that pressure cooker being pretty much right up here all the time, right? Just ready to boil. And you have all of these memories, experiences, body memories held in your cellular memory that are connected to incidents in your earlier life where perhaps you were in danger. So if you grew up in a situation where maybe there was someone in your family who had issues with alcohol or drugs, right? There may be, you become super alert, high alert. So it may be you can sense when someone is shuffling instead of walking, or how they close or open a door, or a tone of voice, or a look in someone's eyes, or an appearance that just sort of crosses their face quickly. You're so tuned in to the evidence of impending trauma of some kind, because maybe you knew the next thing was going to come was a verbal assault, or maybe a smack across the face, or being accused of something you didn't do, or you learn to associate certain sounds, certain looks, certain tones, certain smells with a negative experience. And all of that learning, if you will, is stored in your subconscious. So in your present life, if you have all of these experiences stored up in your pressure cooker, it only takes a small, a small trigger, a small incident that might cause your nervous system to sort of go over that point where it sort of goes into, the boiling mode. And then you're in that fight or flight response. And again, it might be something very simple. It could be a look on somebody's face. It could be an odor that reminds you of something. It could be the way the light is coming through the trees that was the same way the light was coming to the trees when something terrible happened on your 5th birthday, right? I mean, we don't know, our body knows, but we don't always have conscious awareness of what those triggers might be. But in that moment, something sort of sends you over the tipping point. And there's a message sent from your amygdala to your hippocampus that says, danger, danger, danger. And it happens just like that. And immediately, adrenaline and cortisol start running through your body. And before you know it, you're in full, sort of full fight, flight, or freeze response. And once that happens, you can't access your higher level thinking at that point. And this is why, because when the body goes into fight or flight response, it's literally getting ready, to fight this danger, right? So you're either going to fight it or you're going to run from it, or maybe you just get paralyzed, sort of deer in the headlights, right? Stopped in your tracks. But the way the blood flows in your body in those few moments, it flows away from the parts of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, where you can access your higher level thinking. And so you are clearly in reactive mode in that moment. And it just sort of has to play itself out, if you will. There are some things that you can do, which I'm not going to go into in this video because it would make it way too long, but I'm thinking it might be helpful to do a little series on this. So that's what happens when we're prominently in our sympathetic mode. When we're prominently in our parasympathetic mode, so there are a couple of ways, because I used to get this confused in my head. It seemed counterintuitive. Sympathetic seemed like it would be the calmer one. So I sort of had to think of the word para as helper. So like a para in a classroom that helps the teacher, right? Or helps the student, or even a parachute that may slow down our fall and make things calmer. So the parasympathetic, the helping part of our nervous system. If we've grown up again in a family that's more functional, healthier, where our needs are met better, where we can generally come to trust that the world is a safe place and the people around us are going to look out for us and have our back, right? When that's our dominant way of being in our nervous system, we can face upsetting or stressful situations with a calmer and sort of more relaxed approach. It doesn't mean we won't ever get triggered. It doesn't mean we won't ever get upset or angry or agitated or even, lose our cool. But we don't generally reach that tipping point where, we got triggered into that fight or flight response, and then there's sort of no coming back for quite some time. Because our pressure cooker, if you will, the what do I call it? A benchmark is sort of lower, right? We're just not as close to that tipping point. So we can feel the anger, we might feel the upset, we might feel the tightening in our stomach or the tension in our neck or whatever it is, or we may, blow off steam at somebody. But we can more generally come back into ourselves much more quickly. We're better able to calm ourselves down, think the situation through, and be able to then think about what our next steps are going to be. We just can be more in our rational, calmer, more relaxed state of mind much more quickly. So I think that's probably enough to give you a general sense of that, those two aspects of your nervous system. And keep your eyes out for more about this, because it's such an important piece, especially for those of you who have experienced some early childhood dysfunction, neglect, abandonment, or maybe really significant trauma. So keep your eyes open for future videos that I will be creating and sending to you, over the next days, weeks, and who knows, maybe even months. All right. Have a beautiful day. Bye now.